There was a time when I was going to a number of small events, and I agreed to do about 8 or 10 of them. Every time I gave a speech, I would check the facts before I got up on stage. One day, I didn't. And I got up on the stage in Arizona, and somebody in the audience corrected me. That never happened again.
Our guest today is Gillian Muessig, Global Advocate for Women in Technology. Gillian is the Managing Director of Mastersfund, a venture fund focused on backing diverse founders and driving meaningful innovation. Today, we explore her journey, her mission, and the future she's helping to build.
Personal brand are like stars in the solar system, and the brand is the sun that holds it together. It is not diluting the brand in any way. It amplifies it. The older I get, the more I hear about that, where people will come back to me and say, some 30-something years ago, you said, and it changed my life. I wouldn't have known unless they told me they were one of 1,200 people in an audience. But what you say from that stage makes a huge difference. Be careful what you say. Give hope to the audience that their efforts will bring a better day.
Welcome to Beyond the Keynote. I am so excited today to be talking to an incredible lady who has just a wealth of knowledge to share with you. So can't wait to start chatting. Gillian Muessig, welcome to Beyond the Keynote.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with it.
Wonderful. Now, remind me where you're based, because as the listeners know, I'm in Melbourne, Australia. So our time's quite different. Seattle, Washington. Beautiful. Seattle, Washington. Amazing. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So wow. That means we're up early, and I've got the cup.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. All right, let's dive in. I want to hear all about you and the experience that you have to bring to our audience today.
Sure.
So tell me about way back when Gillian was a little girl, and people probably asked you back then, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you ever imagine that you'd be speaking in various sections of the world and running multiple companies or starting multiple companies and now, I believe, investing in companies as well?
Yes, that's what I do today, certainly. When I grew up, that question wasn't asked often of little girls. It was often asked of little boys. And so, wow. Yes, I'm well on in years. The hair color comes out of the bottom these days. Nevertheless, the idea that I might be speaking around the world, it didn't, how should I say, I fell into it backwards. It was a necessity, and so it was done. It wasn't because I planned it that way, right? So when I was little, I was full of energy and all of that, and actually that lasted a great deal of my life. A force of nature with kind words, people would call me. And good. And I am grateful now to know that I had that. I got 69 years worth of it. I didn't get the 70th. And now I know what it's like to be mortal. But the great deal of energy meant that I was able to do those kinds of things. I was able to run around the world and to promote a technology company, SEO Mom, that's now known as Moz, which I co-founded with my eldest son. So an unusual business relationship, mother and son. But I did that simply because, how should I say, it was his idea. I did what any mother would do, right? You just give them wings to fly. I had other children. I had things to do and so on. He joined my company, which was a marketing firm at that point. The web showed up in 94. By 97, it became evident the pages of the web would be organized by search engines. And then SEO, search engine optimization, became a thing. And that's what SEO Moz became about. But it didn't begin as early as 97. That didn't start till later. There was, a long story of difficult startup time. We spend a lot of time looking at the hockey stick, right? And I'm going, no, dear, that's the short end of the hockey stick. That's the rest of it. You don't see it going back 20 years and so on. And besides, it's not a straight line. It goes like this, and then it finally comes back up. So with all of that experience, it was in the process of building SEO Moz, again, now known as Moz, that I ran around the world. And I didn't do that until I was actually extracting myself from the company. Rather than remain inside the company at that point, my job became, if you will, the brand ambassador. To run around the world and build the brand of Moz, to cement that in every market that was possible. And today there are 1.5 million people or more who call me SEO Mom. And I haven't been in the industry for 15 years.
That's so wonderful.
Yes, but that's because I am figuratively and literally SEO Mom. My eldest son, Rand Fishkin, is arguably the most famous name in search today. So we don't share a surname. I've kept my maiden name. But in this process of getting around the world and so on, I don't know that it was ever planned before. It was not a thought that I had, but I do remember, in hindsight, there was a colleague that I did some work with and so on. And she said, I picture you doing this. And I thought, what are you talking about? The company wasn't formed so many, many years later. But I do remember that.
Yes.
That's it.
Wow. What an incredible journey. And do you remember the first time that you were called to go and speak on behalf of the company? And do you remember it being something that you were comfortable with? It was like, oh yeah, that's fine, I'll go speak up on stage? Or was it something you thought, oh my goodness, I have to go and speak up on stage?
No, I was fortunate. I didn't have stage fright. I think there is, if you will, a centeredness that just says you do what you have to do. You put one foot in front of the other and get the job done, whatever it is. And there were things that were far more frightening than getting up on a stage and talking to people, however many there would be. And I do know that others don't feel that way about it, and it's very difficult for them. So hats off to those who overcome that. But I simply got up and got the job done. And over time, I became good at it. But it takes a long time. It's that 10,000 hours until you get to, expertise. And there's no question it was the same. I wasn't bad at it at the beginning, but I became very good at it over time.
Okay. And what do you think improved over time? What do you think, if you assessed yourself and thought, okay, I wasn't as good to start with, but I came very good over time, what made it very good?
Understanding that the spoken word is not the same as a written word, right? The written word is not talk written down. It is its own feint, if you will. The second thing is that public speaking is not one-on-one speaking. There is a difference between English and international English, or any language and international language. There are challenges to speaking both nationally and internationally, or in one's native tongue and outside. The most challenging one I had, or group that I had, was when the translator would stand next to me and I would speak a phrase and they would speak a phrase. That was a very difficult process to keep the cadence and keep the information flowing. But it had to happen in some places because they simply didn't have the technology for the translation work and so on. These would be secondary and tertiary markets where they simply didn't have the money for that. Nevertheless, we wanted that the brand to be there as well. I would say that understanding cadence, intensity of sound, language, the pregnant pause. Some of them are very, standard. Everybody knows that piece, but there were other nuances along the way. Weaving one's personal experience into the corporate marketplace, those are very important. So you could call it a case study and everybody goes to sleep, or you can weave something that's similar but has more impact because it is more personal.
Yes. So good advice. And I love what you said about the written word versus spoken word. I'll often be working with clients, and sometimes when I'm working within organizations, people will have memorized something and they'll be standing up there and I'll say to them, that was beautiful and it sounds like your marketing brochure, and you're a human being, so I just actually want to hear what you think and I want to hear from you. And so then we shift it, and it's so much more powerful when I feel like, as an audience member, the speaker is actually talking to me, not at me, or not regurgitating something that's just been memorized. And it doesn't mean you can't memorize what you're about to say. You just need to make it sound like it's not.
It's true. And sometimes you have to shift a little to fit your audience. Just recently, I was in Trinidad. I was speaking for an ESG conference, which is around essentially impact investing. There were a lot of oil and gas companies there. That's what brings the wealth to Trinidad. And I spoke I don't know, directly, if you will, about
Yes.
impact investing, about the financial importance and impact of impact investing, and so on. And I was, again, a bull in a china closet, right? I didn't make a boring keynote speech from, one entity to the other, so on and so forth. It had enough impact that the gentleman who followed me, who did come from the government of Trinidad, put away his notes, and he spoke from the heart. And he said so. He said, taking a lead from our previous speaker, and then he talked about his own entrepreneurial journey and how he came to government after and what he does and so on. I thought, good, that was a whole lot more impact than telling them whatever you were going to say before, because it was quite dull. So sometimes you can have an impact just by being a speaker that does those kinds of things. So you can, how should I say, teach by doing.
Yes, absolutely. And it was obviously, so it was a strategic business move to decide to get you to speak and build the brand across the world.
Yes and no. I built my company with my eldest son, and he was the great brand, if you will. He was the one pushed forward. Okay. I was in the back. He was pushed forward, and then I left fairly early, and as the company, grew even further, his brand grew even more than that. But by the time I left, I guess he was already the most famous name in search. It was Rand whom we pushed out at the beginning, and then it was required, if you will, that the second in command also do it. I spent 4 or 5 years practically never seeing him, because we would divide and conquer. By decision, we were never in the same city at the same time, right? And so that was important. And then you had to expand again. So we did the same with the people inside the firm. So we had somebody from IT and somebody from marketing and so on and so forth. So these were important bits in which we understood that speaking in a public space helps to build the brand of the company, but it's more than just leadership speaking. It has to be the voice inside the company as well. And so we built the personal brands of the people inside the company. Speaking is a tremendous hack for building your own brand. You can go out and spend a fortune for a small 10 by 10 piece of concrete, and somebody else to put the lights on, and somebody else to give you a table, and even more if you want a tablecloth, and so on. And then you are on that aisle, a gauntlet that the other attendees have to pass through in order to get to the drinks at the bottom of the expo hall, right? Or you can be a speaker. The speaker says whatever they have to, and it's important not to advertise, but to really share important information. And the information, and I'll talk about that in other ways and besides speaking as well, the information that you share is not how should I say, a one and done, let's go viral type of piece. It's the kind of consistency of sharing that which you would give your left arm to know about when you did not know it and you needed it. In other words, critical information that you would really expend a great deal to receive. And in truth, the people who show up at these events have spent a great deal, the most important of which is time. Because even if you live on the street, you can make more money. You cannot make more time. And they have taken time from their businesses to show up. So that's an important piece. Once you have shared that, then you will get this lineup of people who want to talk to the speaker. Your experience is completely different. You get to go to the speaker's dinner instead of going out to McDonald's or, who knows, Red Robin and stuff.
Yes.
You get to go to the speaker's dinner. And at the speaker's dinner, movers and shakers from other parts of your industry will be present. Your experience is significantly more valuable if you can speak. So learning how to speak, knowing what to share, knowing not to make an advertisement from the stage, right, and building that personal brand is a critical and an excellent hack to getting through without spending a fortune. Okay. That's what we did at every level.
So true. I completely agree with you. One of my colleagues was from Australia, was in the US recently, and as we all do, and I do the same thing when I'm traveling. We book in and make sure we do a bit of speaking while we're there. And she said that one of the most incredible experiences she had came from the relationships that grew with the speakers at the event. So all of the speakers were there the whole time. They were sitting on the same table. They were incredibly diverse from different industries, different backgrounds, and all had very, very important, rich messages to share with the audience and with each other. So she learnt so much from the other speakers and now has those lifelong relationships that she'll be able to continue to grow and keep moving forward. So, so powerful what you just spoke about. Mm-hmm. One thing that is interesting, and I love that you and your son that ran the company decided to invest in your people and allow them to create their own personal brand as well as the business brand that they were representing.
It is not.
Well, when I say allow, the reason I say that is because
extraordinary. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, some companies hold back on that because they hold back on that because they think, well, we don't want them to build their personal brand because we want them here in our company and we just want it to be about the company's brand, not the personal brand. Now, by speaking, as you said, by default, you end up building your personal brand anyway.
Penny wise and
I just think they're missing out. They're missing out by doing that.
That is correct. Penny wise and pound foolish. Absolute idiocy. Every time. They can't play two steps down a chessboard if that's the way they're thinking, right? By building the personal brand of every single person that could get up on a stage and would get up on a stage, we then had a reputation for also being an extraordinary place to work. Those people all work for Moz. That is worth something. With the customers, those people all work for Moz, right? Those kinds of things, right? Again and again, the personal brand are like stars in the solar system, right? And the brand is the sun that holds it together. Right? It is not diluting the brand in any way. It amplifies it. I mean, our people had fairy dust on them. There were people at conferences who wanted desperately to go and take any one of them and a group of them and so on out to dinner and learn something and this and that. They wanted access to these people. Right? Every one of them worked for Moz. That also attracts excellent labor to come and work for you, excellent talent, right? And of course, it tells everybody the best and the brightest work at Moz. Where else would you go?
100%. And so when you were going to these places to speak, there was obviously a core reason why you would be in certain areas and venues and events. Do you remember being at one, and it probably happened multiple times, where you got a surprising outcome? So you went for a certain reason, but there was maybe someone in the room that you didn't know was going to be there, or you met someone that was also a speaker, for instance, that led you to something else. Has that ever happened?
Constantly. Good friends, good colleagues, business partnerships, yes. But truly, the surprising ones are those that became good friends for so many years. Yeah, dividends.
Beautiful. Yes,
now
absolutely.
I can run around the world. I can run around the world and visit my friends. I say that with my colleague Ann Kennedy, who built Mastersfund with me. We run around the world to visit our friends.
Amazing. And what are the core topics that you speak on at the moment, or that you're asked to go and speak on?
Yeah. Well, at Mastersfund, the very short version is we fund women. Women get 2% of venture capital, which is, it's really venture equity. And that's what we talk about when we talk about venture capital. But venture equity is only one piece of the way in which capital can be provided to fund the growth of early stage privately held companies. And I talk about the expanding variety of ways in which we can capitalize those companies. The numbers around venture equity, or venture capital, most people call it, should give everyone pause. Right? 80% of every venture-backed company dies within 5 years. More thereafter.
Wow.
16% will continue to function. They'll pay their bills, they'll grow, but they don't have an exit. An exit is a sale or an IPO, an initial public offering. If they don't have either one of those, there's nothing back to the fund. It's the only way venture capital funds get their money back. There's a little bit of secondary markets where you can kind of sell your stakes in this or that. It's not enough to move the needle. Sale or IPO. Okay. 4% have a happy exit known as 3x or better to the investors. In other words, 3 times the initial invested capital goes back to the investors. So
these are all very low numbers.
Did venture capitalists make a mistake on 96% of their investment decisions? It's their job to return an ROI to the fund, and only 4% did it. What the hell happened? Right. How else do you want to look at it? But in truth, that is thin thinking, because this is the investment model. In 1946, Georges Doriot, a French-born American professor at Harvard, formed ARD, the American Research and Development Corporation, with his buddies. And with that act, he became the father of venture capital as we understand it today. He thought that he would invest in the companies being built by GIs coming home after the Second World War, with some pretty good ideas about the technologies that would power the human existence on planet Earth for the next century. Massive risk, massive reward. He thought 2% of his investments would pan out, and the rest would be rubbish. In truth, they've almost doubled it, because it's almost 4% today. Pretty good, right? What he did was to take the fund management and diversification, if you will, the distribution. He stretched it to the calculus limit. 2% and 98%, not, 50% will be something and then, 50% will be other. There are ways in which one balances a fund, right? And he pulled it to the absolute limit and created this concept. Now, it was quite useful, right? This massive risk and massive reward, and powering the technologies that would capitalize these, that would, power this human existence. The United States government got involved immediately. They wanted the technologies he spoke about to happen in the United States, to be built there, because they understood that the country that owns the technologies of today and the near tomorrow owns the planet. And so the U.S. did in the late 20th century. They got to the moon. They put computers out of great big buildings and put them on desks and then laptops. And today we carry in our pockets more power than took us to the moon. Everyone. Okay.
Wow. Yes.
So along the way, all of those things came together, and the technologies were built. In 1994, the web showed up. There was a crack in the universe. .com, .gov, .org, .edu, they belong to the United States. They invented the damn thing. Everybody else stand in line, right? By 2023, AI became, again, democratized and commoditized. Neither one of these technologies were brand new in the year in which everybody kind of knew about them. It was just the explosion, the expansion of the technology. AI, too, has been around 50, 80 years, whatever. So with those things, again, it happened in the United States, but it does not only happen in the United States now. Now the balance of that power of the technology begins to spread in different ways. Whether the next one happens in Silicon Valley or not has a lot to do with politics, sociology, and of course the historical context. And that is very much up for grabs, if you will. We'll see where that happens.
I was going to say, do you have any predictions on the future? Or are you not allowed to share?
Put it in context. In the United States, right, there was this thing about, people fussing, if you will, like you said, corporations will fuss. They don't want somebody to have a personal brand. Thin thinking, short-term thinking, not playing chess. In the United States, at the political levels, it's the same idea. Oh, that's Mexico taking our jobs, the sucking sound. Nonsense. That sucking sound was the United States taking in the world's most brilliant minds. And we'd been doing it for decades. Right? The dirty little secret of the United States is we cannot educate our own. K through 12 sucks, and that's the technical term.
Okay. I love the technical term.
The brilliant minds came from elsewhere. right? And they were educated postgraduate, which meant college, and then university master's degrees and doctorates and so on, right? And they were educated in the United States. Now, take a look historically into those great technology companies that came out of the United States. Go find me even one or two of them that were not populated at the senior leadership level, the founding level, by immigrants, first-generation Americans, or very rarely even second-generation Americans. The immigrants built that stuff. Okay, now, because of the political winds, foolish as they are, sending those students back. You send 3 guys home to Ahmedabad and woe is them. You send 3,000 back to Bangalore. That quickens like a baby. The next Silicon Valley is highly unlikely to happen in Silicon Valley. And
wow. Yes, wise words. So interesting. Thank you.
I'm going to say one more thing, though. With all of that, the reason Mastersfund invests in women is that women get 2% of this venture equity, this venture capital, and they have since 1947. We have not been able to move the needle. So when I found out those numbers, as did my colleague Ann Kennedy, who built Mastersfund with me, we thought with a crashing fist on the table, not on our watch. Certainly, we came to the subject with ire. But I didn't know those numbers until after I'd left the company myself. If I had known, I don't know that I would have had the gut to build my own company. I have so much respect for the women who stand up to those numbers. They know those numbers, and they march to the barbed wire and the brick wall and the guns behind it, and they keep on going. Now, the numbers that I'm going to share with you are all at the Series A. There's angel investment, little friends, and whatever. That's what you can get that. But at the Series A venture capital fund is now determining whether to invest in this founding person or team. Okay, and it's not about the numbers yet. At Series B, nobody cares who's running the show. It's all about the numbers. But at Series A, you're betting on the team. And that's when the women are getting 2%. Okay, so 98% of the capital goes to men and 2% goes to the women. More than 2/3 of the capital going to men, of that 98%, goes to tall, white, American spoken, youthful, slender, able-bodied males from Harvard or Stanford, just 2 universities in the entire planet, with a baritone voice. Everything, including the baritone voice, is points off if you don't have it. Now, the guys get 1/3 of the chance to get back up on that stage. The women, not so much. When we talk about the 2%, we're talking white women. The amount of capital going to women of color of any background other than Caucasian is less than 1/2 of 1%. Goodness. So let's take a look. There's certainly a social reason, right? A crashing fist on the table. Something's got to change. However, as an investor, take a look at it from another side. And feel free to put some avarice in it. Throw it in generously with the salt, right? If 98% of the money is going to the guys, as an investor, I'd say that's an overinvested space. I like finding my unicorns in uncrowded fields. Nobody's beating us out for the best deal. They're not even looking at it. Oh, that's good, right? When the women are offered that venture equity, in the rare instances, right? And the Swedes did this work for us. They gave a deck to a guy and a gal, sent them out to pitch, same deck again, something else, another deck, and so on. Sent them out to pitch all over the place, and they collated the data. Okay, when the woman is offered venture equity, she is offered 16% of the pre-money valuation awarded to a man who pitches exactly the same deck. That's 1/6. Wow. You had told me 70%. I say, yeah, that's like salaries. We'll get on with it. We'll get over it in 150 years. Women will have parity. 16%. You just got told as an investor, you can get an 84% discount on your initial invested capital value based on the human body standing in front of you. It's the same deal. You have my attention. Yeah, that's an eye-opener. The women are capital efficient. They will raise 44% of the capital that a guy will raise in the same industry to exit at the same number. As an investor, you just got told 56% less dilution. Every time an entrepreneur raises a dollar, the investors get diluted. Oh, 56% less dilution. I like that. Keep talking, yeah? The women will exit 1 to 2 years sooner, depending on the industry. Well, time is a risk factor and a cost factor in investing. So we like that one too. And when they exit, with more than 30 years of data now, the women have been returning an average of 35% higher ROI to their investors on an annualized basis. Hedge funds go nuts for a point. I'm talking 35. And yet, the money does not follow the money. So the question is begged, why not? Why are the tall white men in Silicon Valley on Sand Hill Road replicating themselves? The answer turns out to be vestigial behavior.
So interesting.
Yeah.
It turns out to be what, sorry?
Vestigial behavior. It's anthropological. Think of it this way. If a humanoid infant had cozied up to a saber-toothed tiger some 30,000 years ago, it didn't last long. It had to instinctively cozy up to its own kind for survival, right? Well, it turns out adults the same, right? Humans are comfortable with humans like themselves. Right? Different is dangerous. Despite the caps and the mugs and the hats and the t-shirts, it is dangerous, and it always has been. So the question is, how do you deal with it in 2025 when it no longer serves the planet? And that is about building community and bridges and understanding how communities are built and how those bridges can sustain one another across great chasms, absolutely great chasms. So one of the things we know is that women are 3 times more likely to invest in any diversity on a founding team, not just gender diversity, any diversity. So it's critical that we get more women into the decision-making roles, right? And women have a representation of 4% of the decision-making roles of venture capital companies around the world. The top 25 have no women in their decision-making roles. What they invest in, I mean, these are people who have trillions of dollars of assets under management, more than the collective gross annual product of all the mid-sized countries on the planet. That's a massive amount of impact and capital. What they invest in is cool, we see it, we know it, oh cool, right? What they don't invest in, you never knew could have existed. Our present as women and our future is being designed, if you will, with a massive amount of capital strength, and we have no representation. Here in the United States, lack of representation. Last time I checked, we went to war and got a country for that. What do you think the women should be doing next year? Revolution. Right.
Goodness.
The imbalances of the flow of capital, all right, are illuminating, and money is power. We don't have to like that equation, but we damned well better deal with it. And in so doing, that's how Mastersfund came to be. This is not about philanthropic behavior. It's not about concessionary returns, lower returns. It's about outsized returns. If we do not prove that you can make a great deal of money by investing in women leadership in the business sector, the money will never follow the money. Mastersfund is here not to be philanthropic, but to make a great deal of returns. So that's what
Good. I like that. And do you think there's anything, if we stick to women, I know there's lots of other diversity, but is there anything that women could be doing themselves to try and shift that needle, to put themselves forward more? Or do you think it's so systemic
No, nothing is so systemic. The harder, what is it? The larger they are, the harder they fall, right? Nothing stays the same on the planet. Great empires are built and decline. You can see it happening here in the United States too, right? Massive amounts of changes, and not always for the good. But in this case, the women must work on agency over their own capital. Women are taught to write philanthropic checks. Sometimes they write decent ones, there's no question, and very large ones, right? But they are not taught to manage their own investable capital. So some middle-aged white guy does it over at, a major bank and takes care of it and so on. But women must have agency over their own capital. They must guide that investment. Even if somebody else is going to management, that's fine. If it's not your thing, it's okay. But that person must be instructed and guided by you as a human being. And what you wish to invest in has to be, if you will, followed. And far too often that doesn't happen. So agency over capital is huge.
Yes. Okay.
When I left Maz, and so on, I had brought home insults to paychecks for 30-something years, right? My spouse had carried the whole load and then some. But then, as I left, I put a very tidy sum on the table and said, what shall we do with it? And that tends to be how women look at it. What shall we do with it? A guy might mention next Friday night while you're out to dinner that he put $250,000 or $250 million into that company over there. He's not being an asshole. He has agency over capital, and he knows that non-performing capital is useless. It has to be at work. So he puts it to work. The women must learn how they wish to invest, and they do invest in different ways. For example, it's far more collaborative rather than just one leader and following suit. Right? With the guys, it's one who makes a decision and the others follow along. With the women, there is far more collaboration and discussion and so on. They literally invest in different ways. And I know it's a glittering generality and there will be some overlap and so on. But by and large, you will see the patterns. Women must do that more frequently. Don't just get together to go to the theater or go swimming or something like that. Get together to discuss. Get good at it and control where you want it. If you don't want your money running guns, make sure it's not invested in that. You'd be astounded at where it is invested if you dug in. Right?
Yeah, wow.
We have control of our own capital. Yeah. So that's a major piece. The second piece for the entrepreneurs who may be listening is that they should be asking the right people, if you will, knock on the right doors. There is a burgeoning number of early stage funds, and mine is one of them, right? They're small, they're coming up, they're getting larger over time. But that's where you knock on the door. Again, the women are 3 times more likely to invest in any diversity on the founding team or even a diversity in how the company is put together, right? Those are the kinds of things you should be looking at. And finally, as women, we must stop, if you will, coiling ourselves into unholy shapes to fit into a system that was never built or designed for us. We don't fit into it. And that's an important thing too. Again, part of that, the glittering generalities. I get it. But look at the major line of what's going there, the massive amount of people. Women are building companies far more frequently. I hear it from guys too, but far more frequently from women where they say, I'm not building $1 billion company, but if I don't say so, I'm not going to get my equity. Right? We're teaching them to lie, and then we're going to put our money in. As investors, we've got to be insane, and yet it continues to happen. I'm saying is, don't do that. Look at other ways to capitalize the growth of your early stage company. Because if you go for venture equity, you're going to agree to 2 very important things as soon as you've taken even $1 of conventional venture equity from a fund. The first is you're going to sell your company now. In very rare instances, you're going to go public. Right? That's it.
Okay.
That's how they get their money back. If you want to just run your company, you're a bad match. And many of the women simply want to run the company. Some guys as well, right? Okay. That's number 1. Number 2, if you're not going to return 10x or better, not 3 times the money, but 10 times the money, and preferably 1,000 times, be that unicorn, you will be washed aside. You will be part of that 80% in short order. So again, make sure you want to make the deal with that devil. The second thing you agree to is that you serve at the pleasure of your board. And if how you wish to treat your employees, your vendors, your customers, or your trajectory to that exit should differ from your investors, you can and you will be replaced. More than 80% of all CEOs of venture-backed, successfully exited companies, 2 caveats, venture-backed and successfully exited, those CEOs have been replaced. Male or female, doesn't matter. They couldn't take it to the finish line because they weren't really able, just the numbers are staggering. So the women should look at that. They should look at revenue share models, royalty agreements, dividend models, just so many different ways in which we can capitalize the growth of early stage companies. Investors can get on the cap table and get off the cap table. That exit from the cap table is the critical piece. And that is one of the things we did at Mastersfund. We literally created a new investment instrument so that people can do those kinds of things. It massively reduces the risk, and that welcomes more investors, people who have historically not invested, people of color, both men and women of all backgrounds as well.
Wonderful. Oh, well, we are so lucky to have you and your partner doing these things and changing the world, I think. And I get very passionate about women being able to do whatever they want to do. And so it's just inspiring to hear what you are doing out in the world. I'm going to bring it back to speaking just for a little bit, just for a little bit longer. And that was fascinating. What you are out there speaking on is incredible. And I think that's the point. That is the point of speaking. It's not to be up on stage and have everyone looking at you, or just to get known. So as an actor growing up, I was always very challenged, and still am in many instances, by reality TV shows, because for me as an actor, I felt like a lot of people that are going on those types of shows are just doing it because they want to get famous or they want to get their name out there. And those shows, because they're cheaper to produce, replaced good quality dramas or shows where the acting craft was actually required and people were getting cast and paid to do acting. And I think speaking's the same, that people looking from the outside sometimes, and maybe even some people that are wanting to be speakers, are potentially doing it for the wrong reasons, and want, or people looking maybe think it's about glory, or think it's about, look at me, I'm up here talking, and that look at me type feeling, when really it's about what you're giving to your audience and what you're sharing, and as you said, the wisdom, the gold nuggets that you've now learnt that maybe others haven't, that you can pass on, and others can learn quicker than you did, for instance. So, and I love that we've already spoken about the power and impact of speaking and building your own personal brand, which in turn absolutely helps the company's brand as well.
Yes.
We were having a little discussion before we started this podcast today about the fact that nowadays there's 3 different ways that you can be asked to speak, or that you can choose to speak, in terms of the commercials. One is you can pay to play. So you're paying to get up on somebody else's stage. The second is that you can speak for free. And there's many reasons why that would be a good idea. And you can also get paid for speaking. So in your experience, how do you feel about each of those options? And is there one that you would recommend over another, and why?
Absolutely. It's always nice to be paid to speak. It's, it helps to cover the costs of travel and so on. And on occasion, I will ask for it. If it's a nonprofit organization, or, if you will, a financially struggling organization, so on, I will certainly speak for free. And I do that. Almost all of my speaking is for free, which means that I am paying my own travel and my own lodging. And it is a venue where I want to share the message. So a little bit about what you just spoke about. I've got a face for radio. This is not a face anybody
not
wants
at all.
to see on the stage. And so it's not about, it's not about self-aggrandizement. It's about the aggrandizement of the concept and so on. I also spoke with you before. This is my opus. This is about legacy. And so at this point, that's what I speak about. There's no question that earlier on I was speaking not for legacy, but to build the brand of the corporation. But even at that time, you would not pay to speak. So that was not okay. And the reason is this. People spend a good deal of money to buy a ticket to go to a conference, and they spend money to get there, the airline or the cars, whatever, and the hotels and the meals and. They do not pay to be advertised to. If you are paying for the privilege of getting up on that stage, you are paying to make an advertisement, to, if you will, expand the brand of your company, right? If you're going to do it that way, I suppose if your corporation is large enough and it simply has paid for it, it's still incumbent on you not to make an advertisement from that stage, but to share the wisdom of what you know because you're part of whatever that brand is. As in, this is me, I know whereof I speak because, and then that is the CV, right? And that will be evident to the people in the audience. Your CV is out there in the little booklet, right? Or online these days. Nevertheless, it's about sharing very important information that audience wants to hear. Whatever has happened about getting onto that stage, whether you were paid for that or whether you did it without cost to the organization, and the organization does that without cost to you, it's incumbent on you to remember that this is a gift. You got to get up on that stage, and that audience deserves the best of you. Yes. You never show up tired. You never show up drunk from the night before, recovering or whatever, that kind of thing, hungover. You never show up without your A game. There was a time when I was going to a number of small events throughout the South, and I guess it was all the way into the northern as well, the western portion of the United States. So a number of different states, and these were smaller events, and I agreed to do about 8 or 10 of them. And every time I gave a speech, I would check the facts before I got up on stage, because things changed quickly in the world of technology, in particular in our world of technology. One day I didn't. And I got up on the stage in Arizona and somebody in the audience corrected me. But last night, he said, Google did. I had not. Right. That never happened again. Yes. There was another time I was in Hawaii. My younger son, he grew up under the desk at my company and so on. So now he was already speaking by he was 17. And he had a speech to give, and it was in Hawaii, and my husband and I went with him, and I was also speaking, so it was convenient and so on. And he was underage for drinking in the United States, and kind of the bad boys at Search here, the technology there, they took this young kid out. And, and so on. And they gave him something to drink. And they got drunk themselves and so on. And he got up the next morning and he wasn't feeling great and that, and so on. So I dressed him up one side and down the other and told him also, they deserve your best and you will get up on that stage and you will do your best. And he did quite well, but he also never did that again. That was an important thing. Whereas the other fellas were older and should have known better, they got up and said, oh, well, I'm a little hungover this morning because, right, flipping their heads around. I thought, absolutely unacceptable. People have paid their money and time to be there. Remember that it's a privilege. So that's how I feel, regardless of whether you paid or not.
Yes, and we've spoken a lot about the fact that you are building your personal brand up there. So choose which brand you want to build.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I'm feeling a bit hungover right now is not a great opening to your keynote speech. And I agree. So as a trained actor and performer, who then I spent 18 years in the corporate world, so I very much understand the importance of getting a very clear message across. But the performer in me, if you're doing a theatre run and your show goes for 2 weeks and you're doing exactly the same show every night that you show up, you must perform it like it's the first time you're performing it, and it's fresh for the audience and it's with as much energy and passion, and you've got to be in that character just like you would have any other night, regardless. And you normally do get tired. You get tired as the runs go on, and sometimes you don't feel well, and there are things happening off stage, and that's okay, as long as the second you get back on that stage, you are on. And that so is correct.
You bring up a very good point, because regardless of the fact that as public speakers, I and almost all of my colleagues who will be listening here now are not trained artists or actors, it is the same. Whatever is going on outside in that life, right? When you hit that stage, it's about that audience and about that subject. For the moment, that's all you can think about. Sometimes it is of value to separate your life that way.
Yes. And to help with that, for me, for instance, I know that I get very quiet before I have to deliver a keynote or a speech. And I was the same back when I was performing. I think I just naturally, it's what my body does naturally to reserve my energy for when I get out onto the stage. I obviously still warm up and all the rest of it, but I just need quiet time. I need people not to be talking to me, and so that I'm in the zone ready to get out there. And then afterwards, of course, mingling with the audience and still giving afterwards. But once it's shut off and I'm on my way home, it's like I can't talk to anyone either. It's, the energy comes straight back down. And maybe because I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert at heart. Yeah. How did you find it? Did you find that there were certain things that you ended up doing that maybe you didn't even realise were happening to start with?
I think we spoke about this before the show a little bit. I have an extraordinary amount of energy, not so much now, but as I was growing up and certainly in my adulthood. And it was, I don't know, one could measure the amount of energy that humans have, right? And some will have more and some will have less. There's no question. I was way off at the top. Not only the in-the-moment energy, but the ability to go on for a very long time. There were several years in which I would fly around the world more than 250 days a year on the road. I could get off a plane and within an hour I would be on a stage, and in the evening there would be yet another, and then something else the next morning, and so on and so forth. So it could happen, and it did happen frequently. I don't find that, for example, I need a moment of silence or anything. Literally, we're talking 30 seconds. If somebody is introducing me, that's the moment in which I go. But that comes from the fact that I know what I'm going to say. And then I'm reading the audience as well. There were many times when, not in this phase where I'm talking about finance, but in the phase where I was talking about technology to technologists, I would ask the audience, what is your burning question? You've spent time and money. You can never get this time back. When you leave the room, what made it worthwhile? What is the burning question? And as we spoke about, Twitter helps that sort of thing to come up on the, screens behind you and so on. It can elicit questions, it can elicit concerns, and sometimes it simply elicits a give and take if the audience is small enough, if it's a symposium as opposed to a massive keynote. But in both cases, you're able to assess what is it that your audience needs if you don't have sufficient information. In most cases, certainly now that I'm talking in finance, I have sufficient information. I know who's in the audience, what their needs are, and it's all about bringing that to them. Has nothing to do with anything else that happened along the way, the lost luggage, whatever. Right.
Well, we've nearly finished our time together. It's been such an intriguing and enlightening conversation because I'm not in the world of finance or venture capital at all. So thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like to leave our audience with before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would say speak with conviction. And if you don't speak with conviction, you're not speaking about the right subject. In the end, when we put up our feet for the last time in this world, we're going to spend that moment alone. I don't care if 100 people attend you. You spend that moment alone. And I think that the burning questions are not, how much money did I make? How much paper did I push? Whatever. The question is, what lives touched yours and what lives did you touch? As a speaker from a stage, we touch a lot of lives. And the older I get, the more I hear about that, where people will come back to me and say, some 30-something years ago, you said, and it changed my life. I wouldn't have known unless they told me they were one of 1,200 people in an audience, right?
Yes.
But what you say from that stage makes a huge difference. Be careful what you say. Be careful not to bring someone down, but to lift them up. Give hope, regardless of what you're talking about. Give hope to the audience that their efforts will bring a better day, right? It is a critical element of a good life to have that, and you have the ability to give it. Speak from the heart.
I love that. It reminds me, so I have two young boys, and I've watched all of the Marvel superhero movies, and DC. I think that there's two. Anyway, Spider-Man I think has crossed across both. But there is a line in Spider-Man where they talk about with great power comes great responsibility. And as a speaker, you have great power and it comes with great responsibility. So I love that reminder to be careful about what you say and to reflect on what you've said, because sometimes you'll frame something in a way that you didn't actually mean to come across the way it did. But that's how it did come across. And so always be mindful, always be continuing to improve the message. Gillian, it has been such an amazing honour and pleasure to have you on the Beyond the Keynote podcast. Thank you so much for your time and energy today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All right, here's where you're standing. You can close this episode, think that was fun, and go back to doing things the way you've always done them. Or you can decide you're done being the speaker, the leader that people politely applaud and immediately forget. If you want to create the kind of moments we talked about today, the theatrical, the unforgettable, the profitable, I've put together something that'll change how you think about the stage forever. It's called Beyond the Keynote, Creating Your Illuminated Story. No fluff, no theory, just methodology I use with elite speakers and leaders who are done playing small. Go to illuminatedstory.com/masterclass. And hey, if this episode hit you somewhere, share it, leave a review. It takes 30 seconds and helps more people discover that great speaking isn't magic. It's a game and you can learn to win it. I'm Carmen Sederino. Don't just speak, illuminate. See you next week.